wish her Godspeed and a safe passage on all her voyages. May God bless and keep safe all who sail in her.
I've never seen it.
Good job up there.
To Albert.
To absent friends.
Albert. It's a pity.
I built a fine ship. A fine ship. I'll give him that. Quite beyond my expectations.
It was a splendid launch. Albert would be so proud of you.
My son doesn't know on which side his bread is buttered. Taking himself off on some wild goose chase to the ends of the earth.
Only to the Argentine. He'll be back in good time for the ship's trials.
Who's to foot the bills in the meantime?
Well, the company, I imagine.
Not good enough. She'll be at least 3 months in the fitting out basin. Not a penny piece coming into my yards.
James will settle.
Freight rates are falling. They've a long way to go before they touch bottom. There's no money about. No new orders. My yards are at a standstill.
James seems to keep his ships busy.
He's one of the few that do.
But at what cost? Buying up old vessels only fit for the knacker's yard, patching them up, and sending them out dangerously overloaded. You take my advice, pull out. Pull out while you can.
Things are that serious.
A word to the wise. Albert has a 15% interest in the Onedin line. Cash in, my dear. Cash in while you can.
And how old might you be? I am 10, Mrs. Fogarty.
Oh. Oh, so this is your son, Mrs. Fraser. Such a handsome boy.
He takes after his father.
Aye, but he does have the Onedin nose. Hey, William.
Yes, sir.
Has God not yet blessed your union, Mrs. Fogarty?
My wife and I are in complete accord on that subject, Mrs. Onedin.
Without children, a man might just as well not have been born. Except for that son-in-law of mine. He doesn't care if his little mite of a daughter lives or dies.
Pardon, sir, I thought I'd shorten sail.
Keep her as she goes, Captain.
As you say, sir.
Leonora, go below, child. Return below this instant, I say.
Stand clear there!
Throw me a line. I don't know how to thank you, sir. You obliged me, sir, by going below and taking your daughter with you.
You saved my life.
Oh, dear. Captain Baines, now I suggest that we shorten canvas.
Yes.
Am I intruding, Mr. Rudy?
I have finished.
I owe you a debt of gratitude.
You owe me nothing.
Oh, on the contrary, sir. My daughter is very dear to me. She is all I have. Ever since my dear wife passed over. Believe me, sir, I too was inconsolable. I believed my world to have come to an end. You will not at this moment accept my word, but I do assure you that the memory will fade.
Oh.
Please, accept my condolences. And those of my daughter. She has a great admiration for you, Mr. Onedin.
She's a child.
On the contrary, sir. Leonora is no longer a child. She is a woman.
past 2 o'clock.
I know. But these accounts won't settle themselves.
Come to bed.
Whose bed? Yours?
If you wish.
If I wish. Don't you ever? No, of course you don't. Not once in our entire marriage have you. I'll go to bed, Emma. I've work to do.
Well, let me help. Really, Daniel, you're such a muddler. These accounts go here, and those there. Incomings and outgoings. Really, it's quite simple.
Let me see you simplify these.
What are they?
Phrases, dunning us for money.
Oh, they'll extend our credit.
Not for £32,000.
So much?
6 months ago, I placed an order for 2 new barkentines at a cost of £15,000 apiece. There's been a trade depression since. I've 6 ships laid up and 4 more undergoing repair and refitting. We don't have the cash, Emma. We're running at a loss as it is.
But we still have 16 ships in commission. That should be profit enough.
You don't understand.
I understand only too clearly. When we were married, you took over control of the company. And from that day forth, we seem to have done nothing but lose money. Now, when my uncle was alive...
When Mr. Callan died, the company was past its peak. It was overextended. Too many ships chasing too few cargoes.
Excuses! If you'd concentrated your mind upon the business side of things instead of furthering your idiotic quarrel with James Onedin...
James Onedin has nothing to do with it.
I only wish you had one half his business acumen. At least he manages to keep his ships in service and at a profit, I'll be bound.
Oh, so could I if I played his game.
And what might that be?
Buying up rotten ships, patching them up, loading them up to the gunners and sending them out to sea to founder in the first half gale.
And how many ships has he lost?
He has the devil's own luck.
I doubt if luck plays much part in James Onedin's calculations. He concentrates his mind upon his business.
No one could work harder than myself.
You allow yourself to be distracted. Rushing hither and thither, trying to do every task yourself. Harassing everyone from clerks to victuallers until there isn't anyone left in our employ who isn't at his wit's end. You're a failure at business, Daniel. A failure.
Aye, and at marriage too, but I know the cure for that.
You could have married Elizabeth and gone to perdition together.
I'd sooner burn in hell than spend another day in your presence. And as you find mine so distasteful, I can mighty soon find a cure for that as well.
There, my little suet dumpling. There, my pet, my little love. There, my little love. There.
Give it to me.
Poor little mite. I think she's cutting a tooth.
Aye, possibly. But she's a weakly child, always ailing. There, my precious. There.
Fine father she's inherited. Captain James Onedin's no sooner off one ship than he's aboard of another. Couldn't even spare the time to attend his own daughter's christening.
Aye, it's true he has little regard for the child.
The man's inhuman.
I doubt he'll ever forgive her, poor little man.
Forgive her for what?
For being born. For Anne's death.
I warned Anne. The moment she set eyes on the rogue. All in your sheets, girl, I said, and run afore the wind. But she took no heed, poor girl.
Sarah? What?
Well, it's time for me touch.
Oh, all right. Fair enough. I've been accepted. Never. It's all here. I've been adopted as prospective candidate in the Liberal interest for the City Council.
Oh, Robert! First a councillor, then an alderman, and then mayor.
He's got to be elected first, but I'll drink to it.
Well, it is a step in the right direction, Captain Webster.
And not before time, either. Mr. Gladstone owes it to you. After all, you've been a lifelong supporter of his policies.
Well, then, not specifically Mr. Gladstone. No, it's Mr. Plimsoll who's promised his support. You know of his lifelong interest in shipping, of course. Well, he has promised to pay us a visit and speak on my behalf. Introduce me to the voters, as it were.
Mr. Plimsoll, here?
Oh, no. He'll probably stop at an hotel. But I have no doubt he will find time to honour us with a visit. I thought we might ask him to dinner.
When?
The day after tomorrow.
Oh, Robert, that's too short notice.
So you're off to the hustings, eh, young fella?
Aye.
And what constituency do you hope to represent?
Garston.
Garston? You'll need all the goodwill you can lay your hands on there.
Ranzo, boys, Ranzo. So we shipped aboard a whaler. Ranzo, me boys, Ranzo. Ranzo was no beauty. Ranzo, boys, Ranzo.
Captain Baines?
Yes, miss?
Has Mr. Onedin always been such a sour-faced old grouchpot?
Well, let me put it this way, miss. Mr. Onedin was never the sort of man to pick an argument with.
Oh, I would never dream of contradicting any opinion held by Mr. Onedin, ever. I wish to gain his approbation, not otherwise. Poor Papa has almost abandoned hope of ever expressing his gratitude.
If you want to find yourself in Mr. Onedin's good books, I can only advise that you, well, keep quiet, speak only when you're spoke to, and pussyfoot around as though walking on eggshells.
I was hoping for something more positive. What would please him most?
Oh. Let's have a think.
Coal? I am in a position to offer a long-term contract. Coal out to Bilbao, iron ore back. You would appreciate that as a matter of common business prudence, I must ask for your assurance that your ships will be able to deliver at regular and stipulated intervals.
You have it.
In writing, if you please.
Put into the contract, subject to the normal perils and hazards of the sea.
I know the clause well.
Why? Why this sudden act of generosity?
I'm not being overly generous, Mr. Onedin. The freight I offer will be at 7 and 6 a ton.
Well, I'll take it. But you know owners that fight like cats in a sack for an offer like that. You know that, I know that, so I'll ask you again, why?
Well, that was my daughter's idea. She seems to have taken quite a fancy to you. I must confess I cannot for the life of me understand why. Personally, I find you a rude, ill-mannered boor, entirely devoted to self-interest.
Well, I never allow sentiment to interrupt business.
Yes, well, I too am a practical man, sir, and it is my conclusion that this transaction can be mutually profitable. My pits can keep your ships busy, and your ships can keep my pits working to capacity.
Well, that's clearly understood. I'll accept your offer.
Subject to contract?
I'd have it no other way.
Circumstances, I have no choice. I must call in all outstanding debts.
But we shall be bankrupt.
There's no need for you to bother your pretty little head about business matters.
Mr. Fogarty has quite suddenly decided to return to a seafaring life.
The devil he has!
And I'm such a nincompoop in money matters. Daniel says I cannot even keep household accounts correctly.
The man's a fool. Oh. There, my dear, don't take on so. We'll set ourselves down and see if we can't talk this thing out. You take a glass of sherry wine and dry those tears. Flying topsails pay all debts, they say. But it's a poor-hearted man who'll run away to sea rather than face up to his obligations.
I am afraid my husband does not have your business acumen, Mr. Fraser.
And he doesn't deserve you, and that's a fact.
If only I had someone of your knowledge and experience to advise me. Poor Daniel. He really has no business sense at all.
He's brought both of us to a pretty pass. He's left me with 2 brand new vessels just completed, 4 others undergoing repair. And from what you've just told me, I doubt if I shall ever see the colour of his money.
Really, Daniel has behaved most abominably. Well, there's only one thing for it. You must keep our ships in discharge of debt.
I've no doubt your offer is well-intentioned, but even putting them up for auction wouldn't recover half the debt.
Well, then, would it not be more profitable if you were to manage them yourself?
Oh, there's a sight more to trading than owning a few ships, young lady. as your husband has found to his cost.
Well, we still have the trading facilities. What is lacking is a man of ability capable of putting my poor affairs into some order.
Surely your husband's not contemplating running off to sea without leaving some responsible person in charge?
He's sworn to wind up the company and sell off all our holdings.
Sell on a falling market? The man's a blockhead.
I'm afraid he's quite made up his mind. My husband really is the most obstinate of men, and I don't know to whom I can turn.
I should consider it a privilege if you would look upon me as your guide and mentor.
Oh, you're so unkind.
Shipping, eh? It'd be a new venture. No, I couldn't afford to buy him out. My yard at a standstill, ship's half built upon the stocks. By God, George Cannon must be turning in his grave. The work of a lifetime gone to waste.
Well, my late uncle thought very highly of you, Mr. Fraser.
We were good friends. Good friends. A man like that would keep your head above financial waters.
Or indeed yourself.
Me? Oh, no. Quite out of the question. For one thing, the capital investment would be far too high.
Money?
Oh, yes, that's the commodity, young lady. Money.
Oh, well, I thought...
Yeah?
Oh, perhaps I shouldn't propose it. I don't really understand these things.
Oh, come now. You've taken me into your confidence thus far.
Well, I mean, well, if you were to have control of the company, and say you owned half, and in return you received half the profits, which would only be fair and just because you would be putting into it your knowledge and experience, and... Does that make any sense? I'm afraid you must think me a fool.
No. Of course not. Your proposal would make uncommon good sense, but,
Yes?
A 50-50 holding would result in a pull devil, pull baker situation.
Well, then, a 51% holding in your favor. Is that the correct phrase?
Yeah. Mind you, I would only undertake it for your sake, and not to put nearly half the profits into the pocket of that feckless husband.
Well, surely papers could be drawn up ensuring that the profits would be shared between you and I.
Oh, he would never agree.
Oh, I think he will. And I think our first joint action should be a change of name. The Fraser Shipping Company.
Are you acquainted with that gentleman?
Well, of all people.
The devil's that fellow up to, eh?
Taking a photographic likeness, I reckon, sir.
Do I have the privilege of addressing Mr. Onedin? Mr. James Onedin?
Yes, you do. What is this contraption?
Tool of science in the aid of God's work.
And what particular aspects of the Almighty's duties have you taken on your shoulders?
A sacred trust, Mr. Onedin, a sacred trust. My concern is with the safety and welfare of that most unfortunate of creatures, the British seaman.
Claptrap. You have the politician's knack of never answering questions, eh?
Ah, the camera. Well, that, sir, supplies incontrovertible photographic evidence.
What of?
Of overloading, Mr. Onedin. The carrying of deck cargo to the hazard of life and limb. To say nothing of the safety of your ship.
When freights are low, a man must make his profits where he can.
Mr. Bidoff, good day to you, sir.
How is the campaign going?
Well, I make more enemies than friends. And that, I think, is a measure of its success, eh? Right, my good fellows. Number 2 key. Carefully now, carefully, careful. And that. Must away, sir. Busy times, busy times. forgotten anything? Good.
Who is he?
Samuel Plimsoll.
You can do better than this, James.
I'm content.
You can afford the best.
Never had your taste for fanciful living, Elizabeth.
Oh, leave off your hair shirt, James. I'm not impressed. However, I did think that with Albert away...
Eh? Albert away? Where the devil is Albert?
Buenos Aires in the Argentine. I've a house full of idle servants.
The Argentine?
It's a large house, plenty of room.
What the devil's he doing in the
and
Argentine?
I thought you could come and stay with me until Albert's
Come and
return.
stay with you?
Well, think of the money you'd save.
Stop chattering about money and houses and tell me what the devil he's doing in the Argentine.
Business.
Business is here, overseeing work on the steamship, not traipsing off to the ends of the earth.
It's to do with the steamship.
Oh, how so?
He left a letter. Oh. Your housekeeper cooks as she cleans. You'll eat more than the proverbial peck of dust before you die.
Refrigerated meat.
It's absolute nonsense to imagine you can live alone in such an establishment. You'll simply sit here all day brooding like a hen under a bucket.
Your husband's a dreamer.
Well, if practical men like you and Daniel Fogarty had backed his ideas instead of bickering like school children, that ship would by now be on the high seas and earning good money.
Building ships takes cash, not dreams. Now the fool's taken himself off on some fool's errand to investigate the possibility of shipping refrigerated meat. Whatever the devil that means.
Well, it's a sort of ice-making machine.
Oh, aye.
And it means once perfected...
Once perfected, huh?
We'll be able to import prime meat from all over the world.
Well, that day may very well come, but you know something? Albert will not be the innovator. He's not the man I took him for.
Nor are you these days, James. You're not one half the man you once were. You've lost your spirit.
Those worthy and honest yeomen who earn their bread by the sweat of their brow and do not disrupt the commerce of the country with stoppages of work and incessant demands for more pay. For make no mistake, gentlemen, commerce is the lifeblood of this country.
Oh, bravo, Robert. Well said.
Express those sentiments to a meeting of the lower deck and they'll hang you from the nearest yardarm.
Oh, I've pitched it too strong, have I?
I think you've pitched it in the wrong direction, Robert. You'll be speaking to a crowd of seamen, not a meeting at the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, well, perhaps I should reword that passage.
Why? I think it a very brave speech, and about time somebody stood up and told the labouring classes a few home truths, no matter what the consequences.
No, Sarah. I'm always ready to listen to reasoned criticism now.
Elections are what they were in my day. Luckily for you, we would have threw a pompous idiot into a cesspit.
Well, anyway, I've deleted that passage. And I'll say something like this. I'll criticize the owners. And I call a plague upon the houses of those owners, those villainous owners, who, for the sake of quick profits, jeopardize the lives of honest British seamen.
That should bring the house down.
Papal hypocrisy. You're a trimmer, sir, a trimmer.
Really, Captain Webster, try and remember you are a guest in this house, and under sufferance.
I'm seldom allowed to forget it.
You still have one problem to surmount, Robert.
What might that be?
Living down the family name. Onedin.
These are the latest estimates.
More money.
Costs are rising.
Freights are falling.
I'm well aware of that, Mr. Onedin, which is why I must press for settlement of the account.
Well, you'll be paid on completion.
Stage payments, Mr. Onedin. I drew up that contract myself.
Which is why I inserted a penalty clause against delay.
The Anne Onedin will be ready on time.
£15,000 for an engine.
She'll not sail far with that one.
But the original estimate was for £10,000.
Improvements in engineering move apace, Mr. Onedin. This is an even more powerful engine than my son at first envisaged. The greater the power, the greater the speed.
And the greater the cost. Look, you attend to design and specification, and I'll attend to the ship's employment. I can't afford the loss of cargo space entailed by a larger engine.
Come now, £50,000 was subscribed.
Aye, and spent.
It never went through my books. Have you been playing ducks and drakes with your company account? Using steamship money to keep your sailing ships running?
Unless those sailing ships keep running, the Onedin will be just so much scrap iron.
May I remind you that that is shareholders' money?
My money.
My son has a 15% holding.
A small step on the road to insolvency. Look, you keep within your estimates, Fraser. All those shares won't be worth the paper they're written on.
So I'm to hand over half the company to Fraser, just like that.
In return for a 49% holding, we are released from our obligations.
You'll get a far better price by selling out everything, lock, stock and barrel.
I intend to live off income, not capital.
Capital can be invested.
I am investing it. With Mr. Fraser.
Our money.
My money?
That's always been a sore point with you, hasn't it?
Not with me, Daniel. With you.
I do not need your money.
Then sign. Here, here, and here. Then you will be free.
They're down in Paddy's pawn shop number 9. To the pawn shop I did go, no clothes there could I find, and a scuffer came and took that girl away, and the judge he guilty found her of robbing.
What are you doing aboard this ship? Get off this ship!
Hold down that house flag, will you? Yes, I'd heard you were going back to sea.
Aye. And I'm master of this ship.
I heard that too. You see, this is an Onedin ship.
Now you've started off on jailers, but you'll never roam down Lime Street anymore.
An uninsured ship is the safest ship.
It's the quickest way to bankruptcy.
Exactly, sir. Therefore, it is in the owner's best interests to see that his vessels are sound and seaworthy. Now, before insurance was adopted, every ship was most carefully overhauled. But since the advent of insurance, this great care has relaxed, because now the owner's property is safe whatever the outcome. Plausible but untrue. Pressure to insure comes from the merchant.
Well, no question of it. If a ship is lost, I expect to recover the value of my cargo.
Well, there is as yet no means of preventing your fully insured merchandise being shipped aboard some rotten old scow ready to fall apart at the first blow. And that is the purpose of my proposed bill, gentlemen. Put an end once and for all to this disgraceful situation.
Here, here. I'm against it. It smacks of government interference.
The rule of law, sir, subjects us all to government interference.
With the exception of ship owners, it would seem.
Well spoken, Mrs. Fraser.
I know of no ship owner who counts himself above the law.
If Mr. Onedin here were to slit a man's throat for gain, would you account him above the law? No. And yet, should he knowingly send an unseaworthy ship to sea and thereby cause all aboard to drown like so many rats, there is no authority in the entire United Kingdom which can hold him culpable. Now, that, sir, is a situation which I say can no longer be borne.
Here, here.
Yes, well, so much for theory. What of practice, eh?
You must first bell the cat, Mr. Plimsoll. For my part, I'm prepared to accept Mr. Onedin's assurance that his ships are sound and seaworthy.
You accept because you must. You can have no better guarantor than Fraser here. Fraser's yards refit and overhaul my ships at regular intervals. Yes, but
We're
can you
hoping
tell
to
me, Mr.
acquire a much
Onedin,
larger
what
house in the near future. The shop and premises have so encroached on the domestic side as to make it positively embarrassing. And we do so miss the use of a withdrawing room.
Is yours a large house, Leonora?
Well, we have two houses, actually. A small town residence and a great draughty barn of a place at St. Helens. It's very old and spooky. People say that it's haunted. I've never seen anything, but I have felt a presence.
No doubt the shade of an owner crying for lost profits. I'm sure my brother will find it excellent company, should he accept your invitation.
Oh, he will. He must.
Every ship that leaves my yards is as sound as a bell. You have my word for it.
And then you have no further control. There is nothing in this whole wide world to prevent Mr. Onedin from loading that sound ship down to the gunwales and then topping off with cumbrous deck cargo. Now, my proposals will put an end to this pernicious practice.
I'm not quite so addicted to losing ships as you imagine.
I am proposing to remove the temptation.
How? By painting a line along the ship's side?
Beyond which mark, no ship will be permitted to load.
It's quite impracticable.
Oh, can you see those profits slipping through your fingers already, eh?
Aye, I can. If that proposal ever finds its way onto the statute books, we shall be at the mercy of our foreign competitors.
Not so.
They'll not be daubing Mr. Plimsoll's mark along the sides of their ships.
You can't legislate for wind and sea.
You must agree, gentlemen, that a well-found ship is more likely to ride out a tempest than one with its decks awash.
Oh, you can batten down an empty ship, tight as a cask, and she'll still go to the bottom.
Devils. Ship devils!
Ship devils?
That's what we call them, gentlemen. That's why the minstrel went down like a stone. No warning. She broke in half and went straight to the bottom.
Ship devils.
This timber's rotten.
Oh, it's not just the timber that should concern us, gentlemen, but the bolts. Sham bolts. They're the ship devils. The purpose is to pin the outer planking to the vertical ribs. A ship is literally stitched together by means of these bolts. Specifications demand that they be fashioned of copper, whereas copper is expensive, iron is cheap. Copper is impervious to the action of seawater. Iron rapidly corrodes.
All the head is of copper.
Now, in order that the bolts may pass inspection, the shaft is of iron.
Are you saying, Captain Fogarty, that this ship was fastened together with these sham bolts with full knowledge of the inevitable consequences?
They certainly didn't find their way there by chance.
But this is criminal, sir. Criminal.
Is this practice widespread?
Well, some ship owners never buy a new ship. They simply buy an old vessel well past its prime, send it to the shipyards for the cheapest possible repairs, and then send it out to sea to take its chances.
Name me names, sir. Name me names, and I give you my word that I will not rest until these scoundrels are brought to justice.
You will appreciate, Mr. Onedin, that under the circumstances, I can no longer sustain my offer of a contract.
Ships are lost at sea almost daily. And for many, many reasons. But the most common of all is faulty seamanship. Now think upon it, Mr. Biddle. Here's a man, Captain Fogarty, returns to sea after a long stay ashore. His ship is wrecked. He finds himself the sole survivor and promptly pours out a tale of a ship beset by devils.
I have seen the evidence.
Evidence? What you saw was a bit of rotten planking, a couple of sheared-off bolts. Now, your friend, Mr. Plimsoll, will have to do better than that, or he'll get short shrift from Mr. Fraser. That I can promise you.
They never came from my yards.
You'll not deny that the vessel was sent to you for repair.
I have no intention of affirming or denying anything to you, sir, beyond repeating that my yards are not responsible.
I'm afraid that a simple denial of responsibility will not satisfy a judicial inquiry.
To the devil with you and your tomfoolery! Have you no eyes in your head? Look at that timber.
It's riddled with rot, sir.
Does it not tell you anything?
Certainly. It reinforces my argument that that ship should never have put to sea in the first place. And I hold you and Onedin to be equally culpable.
Poppycock!
And I intend to make my findings public, sir. Good day to you.
It came by packet, straight from Buenos Aires. Albert handed it to the ship's master for safekeeping.
The monster! He says he's been offered a position by an Argentine meatpacking company. Excellent prospects, house and servants, an extremely generous salary.
Oh, Oh, but that's splendid.
Splendid? What's so splendid about it? He must have taken leave of his senses. He has the effrontery to imagine that I will pack up immediately and transport myself to take up residence among a lot of wild Patagonians.
But Elizabeth, it's a wife's duty to follow her husband.
Duty? To give up all my friends and spend the rest of my days in some bilious plague spot at the other end of the earth? Speak to Albert of duty, not me. His place is here, at home.
Oh, come now, Elizabeth. I've heard the Argentine is quite civilized.
They do not speak English.
A grand total of 412 tons, ladies and gentlemen, on a ship of 300 tons gross tonnage. Now, Captain Fogarty states that in his professional opinion, the ship was overloaded. He continues, we sailed in half a gale. At dawn the following morning, the carpenter sounded and found that we were taking water rapidly. I ordered the ship to return to port. In carrying out the maneuver, the ship, completely without warning, broke in two, literally falling to pieces.
I think she's settled at last.
Surely Robert could well afford to pay a woman to come and sit with the child.
The child is James's responsibility, not Robert's.
Poor little mite.
Oh, and since when were you so fond of children?
I have always wanted children. It's Albert who's been reluctant.
Elizabeth, if there's been a coldness between you and Albert, what better opportunity of starting afresh than by joining him abroad?
Nothing will persuade me to go and live among the heathens of Patagonia.
Oh, I do wish you'd stop calling it Patagonia. Robert and I have looked it up on Samuel's school atlas. The town of Buenos Aires lies on the River Plate. It has a very salubrious climate and a well-established English colony, so there should be no language difficulty either.
There certainly will not be, for I'm not going.
I've told you before, Elizabeth, it's your wifely duty.
I am not leaving England.
Be reasonable, Elizabeth. You say you want children.
Well, yes, but...
And surely Albert wants a son. Of his own.
Albert's been very good to William.
But it isn't the same.
Oh, I know he'd love a son of his own, but... Well, he doesn't... I mean...
Things will change, you see. I've heard that tropic climes tend to overheat the blood and inflame the passions.
Well, he certainly hasn't written a very passionate letter. Fondest regards to yourself and William.
You must learn to read between the lines, Elizabeth. A more loving letter will follow, you'll see.
Well, if such a letter should arrive, then I'll make my decision.
But you can wait no longer, Elizabeth. You'll soon make new friends. And you should be able to live in considerable style, certainly better than you're able to do here.
My lovely house.
Now there, we may be able to help you.
Oh?
Well, Robert has decided it's time we started looking for a new situation.
New situation?
Well, naturally, family come first, as I'm sure you'll agree.
First for what?
Well, your establishment, whatever your decision, will now be completely beyond your means.
I can manage, Sarah. Albert is sending me a sufficient allowance.
Stay here and he'll not remit you another penny piece.
I know why you're so anxious for me to go, both of you. You want my house.
The Secretary of Lloyd's told me that he does not know of a single ship that has been voluntarily broken up by its owners.
Shame.
Worn-out vessels are bought up by reckless speculators.
He's using the case of the minstrel as a peg on which to hang his argument.
What is the
Perhaps we can take him down a peg or two
brave
later.
men are sent to their deaths, their wives made widows, their children fatherless, in order that a few speculative scoundrels, in whose hearts there is neither fear of God or love of man, may make unhallowed gain. And I tell you, my friends, that until a load line is established by Act of Parliament and enforced with all the rigour of the law, the tragedy of the minstrel will be repeated again and again until those sorrowing widows and orphans of our seaports rise up and cry vengeance upon those grasping avaricious.
Let's test his mettle.
Are you now claiming, sir, in direct contradiction of our yesterday's conversation, that the minstrel foundered because she was overloaded?
The ship sank, sir, because she was unseaworthy.
Or because she was ill-commanded. Where's Captain Fogarty, eh? There's a question or two that I should like to put to him.
Captain Fogarty is recuperating, sir, from his recent unfortunate experience of having taken command of an Onedin ship.
Or a taste of your oratory is more than he can stomach. Well, that I can quite understand.
May I now have a straight answer to my question, sir?
Certainly, sir. The ship sank with grievous loss of life on 2 counts. 1, she was grossly overloaded. Rubbish! And 2, she was ill-repaired with sham bolts. From your yards, Mr. Fraser.
Prove it!
That is a deliberate misrepresentation and falsification of fact. Assumptions masquerading as evidence.
Disprove it.
You who speak so freely of sham bolts will be better advised not to make sham speeches. Veracity and yourself, sir, would appear to be strangers.
This bolt, sir, tells its own story.
Hey, you! Come here! Now I'll pay a penny apiece for every one of these boats you find. Here.
Now carried out a thorough investigation. These are copies of the report. I'll summarize it for you. Mr. Onedin bought the minstrel at auction. Because these sham bolts have copper heads, they deceived, as they were intended to, both Mr. Onedin and myself, when the ship was brought to my yards for repair and refitting. Once the ship was dry docked, my yard foreman and myself followed the customary practice of chalk marking all timber requiring replacement.
Am I to understand that you're now seeking to shift the burden of responsibility to some other unidentified shipbuilder who repaired the vessel in the past?
I've no doubt there are as many artful dodgers among shipbuilders as there are among parliamentarians. My carpenters ripped out all the suspect timbers, replaced them with sound, and pinned them with these new copper bolts, some of which Captain Baines found among the wreckage.
But these rotten bolts also came from the vessel and caused it to founder. Now, why were they not replaced?
Because no one was aware of their existence. At some time in the past, the whole midship section had been repaired with sound timbers, but with these sham bolts.
But this timber is rotten.
Well, that timber comes from the bulwarks. High above the waterline. No danger to the ship at all. If Captain Fogarty knew his business, he never have presented this as evidence.
Is this true, Captain Fogarty? For if it is, by God...
I didn't know. I swear I didn't know!
Oh. Good day, gentlemen.
I shall read this report fully at home. But I do assure you of one thing, Mr. Fraser, whether you be right or wrong, someone shall bleed for it. Good day to you.
Good day. Captain Fogarty, I accept your word.
Thank you.
You were quick to assess the reason for the loss of your ship.
Sham bolts.
Aye. That was sharp thinking, Captain Fogarty. Sharp thinking. Are you still set on the command of a ship?
I am.
Would you consider sailing under a new flag? Fraser and Company?
You would offer me command?
I'm now in competition with Onedin. You come with the highest recommendation.
You'll not go, of course.
Well, thank you. I felt sure you'd lecture me in my duty.
The man's a witless fool. Look, a failure carries failure with him. Change of country doesn't make for success.
A man who can design a steamship like the Onedin is no failure, James.
He's a dreamer. Like the rest of his kind, expects everybody else to do his bidding.
Well, at least he has the courage to start anew.
The need to start anew is the sure mark of a lack of past success. Now, look, don't do likewise. Stay here. Take my advice, eh? Now, look, sell your house and your furniture. Get a more modest establishment and try to live within your means.
I shall keep my house.
You can't afford it. That's your son to consider. How about his school fees? You have extravagant tastes, a dwindling income, a sure recipe for disaster. Now, I've been considering your proposal.
What proposal?
Well, that we should set up residence together. I'm looking for a trustworthy housekeeper, somebody that I can trust. Well, think about it.
No. I shall not give up my house.
How will you manage?
Are you really so concerned on my behalf, James?
You are my sister.
Oh, be honest, James. Sarah's been complaining about looking after your daughter. Now you want me to come and live here so that I can look after her.
How can...
Oh, am I interrupting?
No, I was just leaving.
Not on my account, Mrs. Fraser.
Oh, no, Miss Biddulph. My interview is at a conclusion. However, should you wish to apply for the position of unpaid housekeeper and drudge, I'm sure my brother will give you a sympathetic hearing. Goodbye, James.
Oh, I should love to apply. I'm a most excellent cook.
Miss Biddulph, my sister has a somewhat acid sense of humor. It's a family trait.
Oh. I called to tell you the news of the coal contract. My father has changed his mind.
Yes, I'd heard. Led me to gather that he could no longer sustain his offer.
Yet, no, what I meant was, he's been persuaded to change it again. You ought to have the contract.
Persuaded? By whom?
I always get my own way, Mr. Onedin.